Good morning and welcome to the Return Homestead. My name is Mike and my wife Marty and I homestead 50 acres in southeastern Kentucky. Today we've got a big day planned. There's a lot going on the homestead. Silkies have plenty of food in their J tubes. I've been watching the way they come down the ramp in the morning. I'm pretty sure that I need to get the slats on the ladder a little bit tighter. These guys have got shorter legs than the other chickens, and they're having a hard time with the rungs on this ladder. They also tend to be a little bit more skittish than the other chickens. They don't like new things, so just having the camera in their run right now is making them a little bit nervous. They get accustomed to new things very slowly. So far at night, we still have to come out and put them into the coop. They won't go into the coop at night. There's a couple of them that will. They'll go up and down this ladder like it's nothing, but the vast majority of them just don't even look up. They don't even try to go in. So I definitely need to do something to improve that ladder. There's always projects like that on a homestead that need to be done. Today we've got a long laundry list of similar projects, things that we do have planned for today. We're going to take a look at putting some carrots in the ground. The onions have finished up. We need to finish harvesting those and then prep that ground, and we're going to put the carrots right in behind the onions. We've got some water management we need to do. We're definitely looking at some rain later on today, and we want to take advantage of the fact that it's not raining now. We want to try to do some water management down below at the remodel. So we're going to try to improve the way that that ditch works behind the house so that we can move water away from the house and not allow it to run under the house as it comes down the hill. So we're going to work on that a little bit today, and we still have the remodel that we're working on. I've got drywall mud that needs to be spread, and we also have a zero-turn mower out in the barn that we're trying to sell to someone, and they may come by today to pick that up. So I've got to go out and prep for that first. That's first on the agenda today, is just to get the front end of the barn cleaned out and make it possible for us to get the John Deere zero-turn out of there. And then we'll move on to working with the carrots, and then finally down to the ditch, and we'll finish up the day working on the drywall. First order of business is just to get the front end of this barn cleaned up. There is a John Deere zero-turn mower in here that somebody may be coming by to purchase. Somebody may be coming by to purchase from us in a little bit. So we want to make sure we've got a clear access here. So I just need to clean up some of the junk that's here in the front. Also, when I'm at work, I keep an eye out for things that other people might be discarding, or things that they've decided just aren't valuable. We find stuff all the time that we recognize as being a good resource. So these moving blankets may not look like much if you're not moving, but we have a chicken brooder in the back of the barn, and we brood the chickens usually in the springtime. We'd like to keep them out in the barn, end up starting them in the house because it's just warmer in there. But if we could keep them warm out here, I'd much prefer to have the chickens in the barn where they belong. And with these blankets, I can cover their brooder and keep them a little bit warmer, but that also allows us to remove the blankets, so as the temperature goes up, we can accommodate and keep the chickens at a comfortable temperature. So these blankets were an absolute amazing find for me. That's one thing we've noticed about being homesteaders. It really turns you into a recycler, an upcycler. You don't look at things the same way. They become resources or obstacles rather than just blankets. Back there where the chickens go. That should allow us access to that zero turn in case that farmer comes by and wants to pick that thing up. Grabbed a couple of crates. We've got some onions we need to pick, so now it's time to head back to the garden, get busy pulling those onions. There's a disadvantage to growing in a garden that is not completely weed-free. In fact, we keep all of these green areas around the beds, the places where the grass is growing, intentionally. I like having life on the ground. I think it improves the performance of the garden, not degrades it. But it does lead to some problems with things like watermelon, because the watermelon will grow all the way up through this grass, then the grass grows through the watermelon, and it gets hard to find these guys, because these things are almost invisible back here in the grass.
That's a good sized melon.
Yep. So that's about the size of my hand already.
Mm-hmm. I've got another one over here that big.
Not bad for mid-July.
I'm gonna go give the chickens some salad.
And yep, Marty reminding us that this is not just a pile of weeds, it's a chicken feed. So we're not gonna waste it.
They like this lady's thumb.
And it's these onions back here that we really want to get to.
Yeah.
So we got small onions, but they've got a great flavor.
I ferment them.
Yeah, Marty's been fermenting them, which really magnifies their flavor anyway.
Oh, I've been freezing some too.
Be nice to have some bigger ones though, huh?
Yeah, it would.
So every year we get a little bit better in growing this stuff. So we'll probably get a better harvest on onions next year than we did this year. And some of that comes down to your location. So there were some things Marty was talking about we could not grow in Urington, and some things we could grow in Urington that we can't grow here. You have to adjust and adapt, and we gave a lot of thought to that when we were choosing properties. When we got married, we were renting a piece of property, living in a mobile home out on pasture. So we're surrounded by horses and cattle. We had about 1.5 acres of land that we were situated on. And that was kind of what we were used to, but we weren't really farming it. We weren't doing anything with it, just cutting the grass. So our first choice from where we were there was in Ruston, Louisiana. And the first step we took to try to get onto a homestead was to figure out how to generate enough revenue, money, to be able to buy a decent piece of property.
That started with college.
Yeah, we started with college. That was not a wise choice, by the way. Yeah, it was good to get the degree. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed my time in college, both undergraduate and graduate work, but this is rubber meets the road. This is where we should have been spending our time.
Well, if you had to do it again, would you go into college or a trade?
I'd go into a trade, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if I could go back, I would not spend so much time in college. And money, yeah. The reality is, everything I learned in college, I could have learned just by picking up books at the library. So our first property we purchased was in Charleston, South Carolina. And we ended up in Charleston after spending quite a few years out in California. And that was certainly a failed experiment. The price of property out there in California meant that we were never going to be able to buy anything out there. So we ended up moving, and we went to Charleston, South Carolina. And while homesteading was definitely something we were thinking about. Our primary concern, or I guess I should say my primary concern, was that it was coastal. So we were moving from one ocean environment to another ocean environment. My hope was that coastal environments are all the same, and in particular, I wanted to continue surfing. And Charleston had some surf, at least through part of the year. Not the best reason for choosing a location. So we left Charleston. Our next destination was Nevada. We had spent 5 years there in Charleston, and it was hot, it was humid. We didn't mind the heat too much, but we did mind the humidity. We didn't like it at all. It kept us locked down inside most of the year. We didn't have things that we needed to do outside that would drag us out into it, so we just ignored being outside while in Charleston. So we decided we wanted to get back to something a little more either tropical or desert. We didn't want to go back to the coastline because we knew what problems we were going to find in California, so we went to Nevada. 7% relative humidity and 3,800 days of sunshine a year. It was awesome.
Lack of water, lack of good soil.
Yeah, lack of water, lack of good soil. Those are real important to homesteaders too. But we managed.
We grew a successful garden.
It was a great garden. That one you were the most pleased with, that you would love to have duplicated, was our last garden that we had there. And literally 2 days before we moved, we were still harvesting from the garden. In fact, I was still putting onions and tomatoes and apples in boxes with straw just so we could transport them. So that was a very successful year growing on the homestead. But we were struggling out there, and the water situation was not improving. In fact, it was getting worse. 21 years of drought will take a toll on any property, but out there in the desert it's especially bad. Yeah, choosing Kentucky was really the most informed, I think, decision we've made so far, which is, I guess that's a good sign. It means we're learning as we move. But we finally made the choices that were important to our homesteading dreams. We finally decided that what we wanted was a place that had good quality soil everywhere. We were tired of trying to grow things in an alkali soil that just wouldn't even hold water, much less plants. So Kentucky definitely has that. It's a very lush and verdant part of the country.
Blessed us with rain this morning.
Yeah, we had a nice little downpour this morning. It's making the digging a whole lot easier.
It is. Weeding right after rain is the best way.
Absolutely. Yeah, for those of you who are complaining about the weeding you're having to do in your own garden, go out and hit it with a garden hose. Wet it down before you go out to weed. You'll find it's a lot easier.
That's the way we had to dig in Nevada.
Oh man, in Nevada, yeah, if you wanted to dig a hole, you had to get the garden hose out. You could get the top layer of sand off, and then it was packed down underneath there, and the shovel wouldn't even go through it. You had to wet it down, let the water soak in, and then you could dig in it easily.
Well,
So I better get back to helping Marty with these onions.
Actually hit the bucket twice.
Got some that are buried back here in the...
Do I? How funny.
They got covered up by the watermelon. You know, the other thing I'm noticing here, hon, is these onions are kind of squat or flattened. So we
don't know what kind of
we don't, and we're still dealing with, I think, some soil compaction here.
probably.
It's going to take a few years of keeping compost on this to break that down.
Ultimately, we want raised beds. It's easier on the back. Much easier.
Y'all may remember on a previous video about the garden, I was talking about this mulch we put in here just as a weed controller. And it has been very effective. It worked extremely well. Held moisture in the soil, kept the weeds from growing, kept everything nice and clean. But keep in mind that mulches are dead. Soil is living. Soil has mycorrhizal fungi and other protozoic organisms that are breaking it down and making it available to the plants. So the fungus will actually break down the nitrogen that's contained in the bottom layer of the mulch, and they'll feed it directly to the roots of the plant. So the fungus actually connects to the plant, connecting the plant to the mulch, but the fungus is taking the nitrogen out of the mulch and bringing it down to the plant. The problem is if you mix the mulch into the soil, the fungus can't work on it correctly. There's not enough oxygen down there.
And it will take the nitrogen.
Yep, and so then instead of nitrogen being released from the mulch by the fungus, the mulch starts sucking nitrogen out of the soil. So mixing any dead compost, well, it's actually not compost, so mixing any dead mulch into your soil without composting it first will damage your plants. It will burn them. They'll have a hard time growing in that mix. So you notice I pulled the mulch off to the side. We're gonna put the carrots in, just set them down there on the soil, cover them back up with the mulch. The root of the carrot will grow down into the soil, which is what we want. We'll have good ground cover that will also protect us from weeds while holding in moisture, also what we want. And hopefully we've gotten a little bit of fungus started in this mulch in the short time it's been out here.
I'm not seeing a lot of worms.
I'm not seeing a lot of worms, nor am I seeing any hyphae in the mulch. So we may need to hit this with a compost tea if we want it to supercharge and get busy. But the mulch will at least accomplish those simple tasks of keeping the moisture in and the weeds out. Oh, that's a nice bundle.
It is. So when you're harvesting elderberries, you need to, this one here is green and it's highly toxic. You don't want any green. So I usually pull those off. And what I do is I'll take them off the stem. They come off really easy. Just roll them in your hands. Throw them in the freezer until I'm ready to process. I can make tinctures out of this. I can do all kinds of things with elderberries. Mulberry on the brain. But at any point, you never eat these raw. They are very toxic. But if you cook them or boil them, they're fine to eat. And you want them as dark as possible. I'm going to pick these before the birds do. Whoa, they're just falling off. There are a few green ones, but not bad. I've already picked so many already. This bush has been highly prolific.
So far, this is the only variety that has been ripened. Got quite a few others.
I've gotten some of these off.
Have you?
Yeah, I have. They're different varieties, and I'm sorry, I don't remember the name on them. See, here's a good one. But these are two different varieties. This one's a little blacker. This is more purple. This one was late to bloom. This one bloomed at the very beginning of summer, so it did really good. But that's a lot of elderberries, and they'll give you pounds on every bush. These, super easy to propagate. I've got them all over the property. We also have wild elderberries down at the other house. So our elderberry harvest this year is going to be beautiful.
Yeah, the wild elderberries did exceptionally well this year.
Yeah.
Lots of berries on them.
And they're still ripening. I don't see any up there.
Not
Look
yet.
at how tall this bush is. When we
It's,
brought it from Nevada, it was what, a foot?
Yeah, it was just a stick coming out of the ground when we put it in there. So the plan here is pretty simple. We just put carrot seeds in a very shallow trench. We're not trying to cover them up with dirt. We're going to put mulch over the top of these. And that mulch is really good at holding moisture in, so to keep the seeds wet while they germinate. We'll provide a nice light medium for them to push through so the plants can get up and start getting sunshine. And if we're careful about how we space them by meticulously planting like Marty's doing, then we should be able to avoid having to thin these out too much later.
That kills me.
Oh, I hate having to pull healthy plants out of the ground in order to thin them out. So we're going to be a little tedious about this. It's going to take some time, but we think it's well worth it for carrots. Hey Grandma. So Grandma's come down to inspect the diggings like she normally does. This is where we're going to start down here dealing with this water problem. So Marty has been putting in many hours throughout the day trying to shore up this little ditch and moving rock from off of the hillside down to begin building a berm here on the back side of the house. And she's made a lot of progress, but we really need to do something dramatic here because there's not enough ditch here to contain all of the water that comes rushing down this hill. So we need to make this ditch wider and flatter. I don't want a deep ditch that's going to allow water to move quickly. I want the water to move slowly so that it doesn't erode any further. We've already got enough of an erosion problem here with this oak tree trying to pull itself out of the ground. We are going to have a choke point that's going to be right here because that is rock sticking out of the ground. So this is going to be the narrowest portion of the area we have to dig in. So we're going to work off of this space and try to build a ditch that is curved in the bottom. And we'll put all of the dirt on the downhill side. So we'll build a berm down this side of the ditch and leave everything on this side low, and that should allow a perfect channel for the water to get out. Sometimes it's hard to appreciate on camera just how steep this hillside is. Tell you, when you get out here and work it, you really start to appreciate just how steep it is. Marty's been making progress, but this is several weeks worth of work of her moving these rocks. There's just a lot of hillside here to take care of. So I'm gonna grab my shovel, get busy back here in this corner, and we'll start working our way back up the ditch. So that's the basic idea. This is a ditch to move water. The nice gentle slope coming into the ditch, a nice steep slope coming out of the ditch, and lots of room for the water to spread out. Well, that was a lot of digging. There's a lot of rock in here, and all of this soil has been washed down the hill, so it's all pretty loose, but it packs in tight around these rocks. So it's been hard going to get all this digging done. But I think we have the beginnings of a good ditch to get the water off of the property and keep it from going up underneath the house. This may look like it's going to shed water well at the moment. I have a feeling when it rains, we're going to get a pile of water stacking up on this side. And I'm going to need to cut this down quite a bit more. So I'm looking forward to a good rainstorm so I can see what this actually does for us. But this is what we want to do down the entire back side of the house, is get ourselves a proper ditch put in with a nice barrier that protects the house from the water flowing down the hill or from snow melt. So that's what we decided to put our work in today. And I know there was a big old pile of rocks here where Marty had been doing some work. Don't y'all worry, we didn't waste all that. We've used those rocks out in her front garden. You got to see what this thing looks like. So all of those rocks that we've been pulling out of the dirt and the rocks that Marty had stacked up to protect the ditch, they're getting moved out here. Always more to do, and it'll all get done.
And I'm always in a hurry.
Yeah, you're always in a hurry about it. We do appreciate you joining us on the Return Homestead today. We've had a really good time working in the garden and moving a little dirt to move a little water. That's just what you do on the homestead. You bounce from one thing to the next. You get a little bit done here, a little bit done there, and 5-6 years from now, you've got a beautiful property with all the systems in place and ready to work. You just start on one today. It doesn't have to all get done. Just do one. Just do part of one. You don't even have to finish the ditch. You can just get it started. That's all we've done today. But if you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you jump in there and go ahead and subscribe to the channel. If you have the window open, hit that thumbs up button. That's going to let the algorithm know you enjoyed the video. They'll share it out with more people. And we'll see you next time.